All right, I'm Alexander Hill, and the graphic novel I read this month was Pulp, written by Ed Brubaker, illustrated by Sean Phillips and Jacob Phillips. The publisher is Image Comics, and it's 77 pages long. It's not a compilation or anthology, it is a genuine graphic novel. All right, quick synopsis on Pulp's story. It's about a comic book writer by the name of Max Winters. He works for a comic book company. He was an outlaw before he became a comic book writer. He's aging. It's 1939, New York City. And basically, he has a near-death experience involving a heart attack. And he's starting to take stock of his value and what he's going to leave behind. So Pulp breaks up into 3 acts. For me, Act 1 started on page 7, where you see Max and he's been shot. He's covered in blood, and he's basically going over his deaths in the past, he says. So he has 3 deaths. This was his 3rd death, and that's page 7. Page 38 is the end of Act 1, and Max attempts to rob a bank truck, and he is stopped by Jeremiah, and he's a man from his past. So Part 2 starts where Jeremiah asks Max to go for a drink with him. They go to the bar, and he sort of tells him what's going on with these Nazi sympathizers and a whole lot of money that Max can make, which he needs to help Rosa. Part 59 is where I believe Act 2 ends, and Max has a heart attack during the robbery, and basically they're getting away. Nazis are shooting at him, and he passes out behind the wheel, and that's where Act 3 starts at page 61. Max awakens in the hospital. He's by Jeremiah, and Jeremiah gives him the money that he needs. He didn't actually get the money during the robbery. He gets the money after the robbery. And we sort of end the book, which is the end of Act 3, where we started, with Max laying down on the ground in a pool of blood after tracking down the people who killed Jeremiah. So pretty much it is Max's story. So Max Winters is the protagonist's main character, and his goal is to get money for Rosa, leave something behind for his girl. And the conflict in Act 2 is the Nazi sympathizers after the robbery he takes to help Jeremiah pull off so he can get money for her. So that does lead into his goal, and it does cause problems for him with his health and trying to achieve his goal. And that's most of what Act 2 is. As far as character arcs are concerned, Max kind of wanders back into his old life. So he sort of regresses as a character arc, but he fights for different reasons than he used to before when he was an outlaw. So he kind of dies for something noble, defending Jeremiah. But the only other real character I believe who does have a character arc is Jeremiah. He goes in, decided he wanted to take a stand against the Nazis, and everything that he did was to basically build up his people, and he died trying to help a neighbor whose husband was abusing her. And he kind of stuck to his principles, lost them, and then found them back again. Same type of arc Max went through. So yeah, I believe Jeremiah Goldman and Max Winters have a pretty decent character arc. As far as transitions, I would say Moment to Moment shows up on page 66, where Max is reading about what happened with the Nazi robbery, and he's drinking a cup of coffee, so it switches from moment to moment. As far as action to action, pages 53 and pages 70, 2 gunfights where it just directed from one panel to another as far as action. For the mini comic aspect, I'll probably go with 4 and 35, as they show a lot of the comic book world, which normally comes in the form of a flashback, or he's explaining what he does for a living, and they sort of come in and come out. Pages 34 and 35 do a good job of that. I'm showing him as a gentleman bank robber. And then I would go with, as far as a non sequitur, anytime it goes into the comic book world, it pretty much does that. But pages, I would say page 60, that changes from New York City streets to the comic book world to the bar where him and Jeremiah speak. So it does a good job with its directional flow, and it does a good job with its transitions, and it never really gets in the way as far as, reading left or right. For me, this novel had a clear beginning, middle, and end. They did splash in a few scenes with the comic, but usually that they were inserted in places where they could continue to tell the story. And the ending worked for me. It's already known when you first pick up the book what's going to happen to Max, but I thought it was an interesting way to tell the story and then bring it back. So yeah, the ending was satisfactory for me. I would recommend this comic to the class just basically because it's about comic book writing and a small portion of it. This was done during the Great Depression because it's 1939, and Max is struggling to make ends meet as a comic book writer. It deals a little bit with the editing in the first act. So I believe that it would interest my classmates because it's basically what we're doing this month. As far as my friends, we love Westerns. We always talk about Westerns, so this is right in our wheelhouse, and I was very surprised at how well told this Western was. Pretty much the link, I don't have a link for Pulp. I got it off of Hoopla, which is something that's attached to my library. You can also see if you can find it on Overdrive, and it's also available through Amazon. But as far as a fun fact about this comic, I would probably say, so Max, when we first get introduced to Max, he's basically selling a story to his editor, and his editor tells him that they have to reduce the price of that he gets paid, and he comes out with exactly $120. So when he comes out with $120, he's getting paid 2 cents per word. I tried to look up a little bit as far as comics getting paid, and I know we just read about Lower House Comics getting paid $80 a page, where I believe higher end pays about $300 per page. So it was just a different contrast to see how much you get paid then to how much you get paid now for doing that type of job. Which, with today's standards, how much he was getting paid for about 2 cents, I did a breakdown, that's about $2,300. So I just found that interesting, and that's just a fun fact that after you read the comic, you'll know about. That made me, interested to do a little bit of research. So Pulp was a great graphic novel. I hope you guys get a chance to read it, and have a good one.